Hi, this is Kelly from Crafty Kelly's at www.craftykelly.co.uk. So today I have got my final project for my Altenew level 1. Yay! So this is really exciting. So I'm going to put together a pack of 8 cards, and there must be a similar theme throughout the cards. Also, I've got to have a set for boys and a set for girls. So 4 cards for the girls, 4 cards for the boys. Should I say feminine, masculine? So I've done myself a little kind of diagram of kind of what I wanted and some ideas and stamp sets I wanted to use. As we're all in this situation with the lockdown, and I am a key worker, I wanted to go for a rainbow theme. So there will be elements of the rainbow throughout the card selection that I wanted to just make some fun, brightening cards that I think can be enjoyed by many. So I hope you can join me for my journey through my card kit set, whatever we're going to call it, and create some lovely rainbow style and pretty cards. So for the first video I'm going to make all my backgrounds, and then we're going to go through stage by stage with some other videos. So backgrounds first. So I wanted to create this really fun, lovely rainbow background, and I've got all the colours from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So they're the colours I'm going for. I am using some distress inks, and I'm using one purple from Stampin' Up, Grapefruit Groove, because I only have a limited amount of colours, and I wanted to get all the rainbow colours, and they were the best matching, as you can see. I'm using this really lovely stencil by Altenew. I've just fastened it down onto one of my messy mats and just left a flap open to slot my card in. And there we go. So I'm just going to use another bit of tape just to tape this down. So hopefully it doesn't move around too much. There we go. So I've not covered any of the card that I don't want to, but I am covering it up. Now I'm using sponge brayers for this technique. It's entirely up to you what works for you best, but for me, my sponge brayers for this kind of background are my go-to. I've also got some sticky notes because I'm going to need to cover up some of the elements that I don't want to get covered in ink. So we're going to start with the red, and I'm using this Brick Door Red by Distress, and I'm going to squidge some of this out on my mat. Then I'm going to make sure I've got the right one. That's a pink one. I want to get the right one in. So I've got a different sponge brayer head for each colour family, really. And I'm going to pick up the ink. So I'm rolling the whole, so I'm not going backwards and forwards, because then it will only cover this small area. I need to keep it rolling round to pick it up. So once I feel I've got some on there, let's mask off where I don't want my colour to be. So I'm going to do the first 2 blocks. And with this, once again, don't just go backwards and forwards. Do it a bit, then work it through. The reason being because then you're only ever picking up just that ink on that one area. And I love these sponge brayers. They're so easy to use, and you get a really nice coverage. If you prefer sponge daubers or the blending brushes, that's entirely up to you, whatever's your kind of go-to. I actually think I'm going to bring in, where's my acrylic block? An acrylic block just to put my actual inks onto, because it'll be easier to see that I've cleaned it off properly. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next colour. I'm actually just going to lift that up and move it across. Actually, I don't want that red to get onto my next colour, so I'm going to leave that up there and just tape that down in the corner, because I don't want to transfer any of that red onto my orange head. So I'm grabbing my orange. Oh, the orange I'm using is Peekaboo Peach, which is Stampin' Up colour. I believe it's retired now, but it is a nice orange that I have that I feel complemented the colours I used. But obviously you use whatever mix of inks you've got that work for you. Once again, just rolling straight through all the way round, picking up all that ink. And then I've only masked one, so same process. Need a bit more. There we go, a bit stronger. And you can add as little or as much ink as you would like. So if you want to make it pastels and light, or you can make it dark and bold. There we go. Right, I'm happy with that. So next colour is the yellow. Once again, I don't want to blend or mix these colours. And I have to mask off each area as we go, because I don't want it to mix into the next one, as I said. So the next one is yellow, and a colour like yellow is a colour, when I was mucking around, I did kind of transfer a bit of colour into my yellow and it made it all muddy, so do be wary of that. So I am trying to get out of the habit of using wet wipes, so I've just got a kitchen sponge which I kind of wet and use that for when I'm doing this kind of technique and messy stuff. So where were we? Yellow. I've managed to clear off my yellow so I don't have muddy colour in it. So this is one of the nice Altenew yellows, which is the fresh lemon. This technique is really good for batch making as well. So if you know you do a batch of them, you can do all the colours at once, or you can go through like we're doing, one at a time. But it's a really kind of fun way to use your stencils and using your colours, and it's a nice way to brighten up our days at the moment. So I am going to speed up the rest of this so you don't have to watch me do every single colour in the same manner. I hope you get the gist of what I'm doing. Any questions, do fire away. Thanks very much. Okay, so let's pop it out of here. And there we go. Got our lovely two identical backgrounds. So I'm going to pop those over to one side and we shall start on the next one. I'm just going to give my hands a little bit of a wipe because you do get very inky doing this. Okay, we're going to move on to a masking technique. That was a masking technique, but kind of flower-based masking. So, okay, so I have already randomly stamped in two colours. No, and I went for two really lovely contrasting colours. So this really lovely orange, really lovely blue, and we're just going to add in some green for our leaves. So I use the brush art florals for this, and this will be for the feminine card, and I've already gone ahead and masked off so we can create the look of the leaves behind. So whenever masking something like a flower or a scenery and whatever you want at the front, you always stamp first. Whatever you want behind goes up in layers. So we want to stamp our lovely leaves so they appear behind our flowers. So I've got the little stamp here. I've used some Altenew. I've used some rare earth masking sheets. These are fantastic. This particular brand, you get tons, so they will last me a very long time. And the beauty of using a masking sheet instead of sticky notes for this particular kind of technique is the longevity of it. When using sticky notes, the ink will eventually bleed through after 1 or 2 stamps, and then it's not usable again. Whereas using something like the masking sheets, they are designed to actually last. So I will stick these onto the stamp carrier sheet, and then if I'm doing a project where I need these particular flowers masked off, then I've already got it ready for me. So you can see how I'm just positioning my leaves, and they don't have to all be the same. I just want 2 leaves coming off of here, and I'm actually going to go whoop, here with this one. So they're not all going to be identical. I don't want them to be, but if I show you, there we go. So now my leaves appear that they are behind my flower. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this sheet. So I'll speed it up because I'm sure you get, oh no, now I've got green stuff. Got to be careful. I'll be able to hide that, that's fine. Now see how it appears really nicely just behind the floral. Right, I'll speed this up and see you at the end of it. So there we have created this lovely kind of floral background with the green leaves behind. I have got a smudge of green on it, but it's fine because I'm going to be able to cover that up. So pop that to one side. So the matching card that I'm going to do for the men is a little bit different. And I'm not sure. I'm going to use a simple round stamp, which is from one of the Mandela sets that I've got. And we're going to do a mixture of generation stamping. So I'm going to use many generations of stamp to create my background. And then I'm going to use a fine pen to draw in some detail. Now I think this is a fun way to create a background. If you don't have many resources, I've got some fluffy bits on there. So I'm going to stamp this off a couple of times because the blue really does have a habit of transferring. That's fine. Okay, so I'm using once again this blue and orange because I want for this pair of cards to kind of have this same vibe going on. So I'm going to stamp it once. Because it's on that corner, I'm going to take that off and I'm going to stamp it again because I don't want to get that corner line across my card. So I'm going to bring a full strength, bring it down, and I think just at the bottom, bring it down. So it's very fine. So I'm going to do that again. And once again, I'm gonna come in at the top here. So I need to re-ink before I do the next one. This one I'm going to bring down here. Then I'm going to... So I've kind of got it randomly done there. Let's just clean this off. And we're going to bring in... Now, I am going to overlap these. That is absolutely fine with what I'm doing. But I'm going to concentrate quite a few up in this top area of full strength and second generation. And I'm going to carry on working like this to kind of fill most of my white gaps, and all will become obvious why in a moment. So I carried on stamping some more, and with the generations of stamp, I then used a little bit of ink on a brush to just highlight some of the areas, just to make the balloons pop out a little bit more. Also filled in the little hangy downy bit, which I think has made it a really fun card. So I just outlined it with a fine liner pen, just a general shape, made a little squiggle, and that just makes, I don't know, your stamps a little bit more versatile. So something so basic as a circle stamp, and look at the fun kind of balloon creation we've made. So these are our matching set from, or a matching pair for the set. So they're two backgrounds. We've got our rainbow backgrounds, and we're going to move on to watercolor backgrounds. So I'm just going to grab a piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm using tattered lace, I believe. I've just got a watercolor brush. I'm going to bring in a bit of paper just to keep this dry. This is really simple technique. I'm just using a block again, and I'm going to squidge out some of the colour onto my block. And I'm going to squidge out some water. Yeah, we got some water. And just work it down the page. So this is a wet on wet technique. I'm not trying to saturate it because it gets a bit too wet, but I'm bringing some of that colour in, drawing it down. And you can make this as dark or as light as you want, but keep working that colour in. We can manipulate the water by running it down. I need a bit more colour, I think. You can use bigger drops, water droplets, but that will create more water onto the piece. Now you can air dry it, or you can force dry it with a heat tool. So here are some I done earlier, and so you can see like the vibrancy of the colour, the kind of watermarks and swishes. It's just really fun way to create a background, and a really simple way to create a background. So I've done that in the same blue and a purple. And I'm going to need my block. So for the next one, we're going to do a little bit of heat embossing. and then we're going to use our colours to create a lovely kind of washy background. So let's grab my heat embossing bits and bobs. I try and keep the main stuff I use in a little pot because it's always to hand. And I think we are going to emboss in white. So you could do this in white or in clear, entirely up to you. But I'm going to do different images for the different cards. So we're going to do a quite floral, feminine one, and then we're going to do a slightly different, more geometric style one. So I got this beautiful floral set. I've been waiting for this to come so I can do this project. I just love the lines, but also how it's very like fine detail. And I'm not sure if we're going to go you, but we're going to go for the big one. I will need to prep this stamp as it is brand new, and we shall do that. I'm going to bring in my stamping tool and my rubber. Where did I put my rubber? So I have a rubber that I generally just use for prepping stamps now, and it is, to get your best results, it is always good to prep your stamps. I found some stamps don't always need it, but if I'm honest, it's the better quality ones that do. So all I'm doing is, it's part of the manufacturing process. The stamps are left with like this slight film on, so there isn't always the full capability for the stamp to collect and transfer the ink over. So by just rubbing with a rubber, you're able to remove that film and kind of roughen those edges. I don't know if you can see but the difference, but it was glossy and now it's matte, and that just means it's going to pick up that ink better, much better. So let's get you sorted. I'm using a stamping tool for this because just in case I don't get all of it like inked up in one go, the beauty is I can go back in, and because it comes off the edge there, I'm just going to pop that down just so I don't get too much ink onto the mat underneath. I'm using Versamark. I flip between Versamark and Rare Earth ink pads for this. I think they're both just as good as each other. There are lots of different brands. I do have a Ranger one, which is good because it came in a little kit and it came with a little pen as well, so which I always think that's pretty good. So I'm going to give it one more going over. Do you think I need to re-ink this? Do. Lovely. So I'm just going to set that to one side so I can cover both pieces with the embossing powder when I'm ready. Now for the men's, I'm going to be using this lovely kind of geometric triangles, and I'm actually going to use a couple of them of all different sizes. these are kind of the outline, and then there are some liney ones, so I think I'm going to scatter one or two of the liney ones as well, just in between, just for a bit of, ooh, a bit of something. Oh, and I want that one. I want that one. Okay, so let's arrange. So I want it in this same kind of concentrated kind of area, and I want it to be random. No, you need to be up there. Okay, that's kind of, yeah, I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to pick those up once again, because this is a brand new stamp set. I'm going to need to just give it a good going over with my rubber. Oh, there we go. Versamark again. And if I miss anything out, then beauty of the stamping tool, I can go back in. Okay, happy with that. Sort all of those out in a sec. So now if I bring in my powder, let's get off any of that unwanted rubber. Just going to pour my white embossing powder onto the area. I'm not going to give it too much of a flick or a blow, but I will grab a brush just to take off any bits that are unwanted. This bit here. I'm being quite gentle with it, because I don't want to knock it all off. That's lovely. Oop. Now for the flower. Perfect. Just get a bit more in this area here. That's it. Okay. I'm going to tip this back into my pot. Move these bits out of the way. And I'm just going to grab my heat tool and heat set that. With heat embossing, you kind of wait till your tool is up to temperature. Hold it across an area. As soon as it starts to turn, you're ready to move on to the next area. The lovely thing about doing like heat embossing and watercolor is you get this just beautiful resist technique that the heat embossing creates. I tend to always hold my heat tool underneath just for a little bit, just to kind of straighten out the card. But I love, it's like alchemy watching it turn. You may not be able to see it very well, but as soon as we drop some colour onto it, it will look beautiful. Right, I'm just double checking. Can you see how that's just popping out? That is gorgeous. So we're going to work on these both at the same time because we're using the same colours. And I don't want to be flitting back and forth. I'm going to get rid of these 2 bits of paper and bring in So I've just brought in my glass mat just because it will be a little bit easier to work with. I am going to do a bit of wet on wet, and we are going to need to squidge colours out as we need them. I'm going to stick to my rainbow colour theme as I love it. So you can do dry on wet, wet on wet, really whatever you're into, and we're going to probably do a bit of a mixture of both. So let's make sure that that is not bleeding blue. Sometimes our inks, see, that's fine, sometimes our inks kind of stain tools, so don't be too worried about that. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to these bottom areas to start with. I'm not going to saturate the whole thing first because I don't want to cross-contaminate too many of my colours, because I want them to remain their own. So we're going to start in this corner and work our way up. So the first colour I am here using is our red. Now you can heat dry this, which I probably might actually, so it just speeds the whole process up a bit more. Right, so now we have 4 sets of lovely backgrounds for 8 cards. Some feminine, some masculine, some that match. So next will be to put my cards together. So I'll catch you for the next part of this lovely card collection. Thanks. See you in the next one.